In John 16:33, we read, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. God is our comforter and provider in the here and now. And by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, He is our ultimate comfort. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand.
There in the ground His body lay, light of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave He rose again. And as He stands in victory, since curse has lost its grip on me, for I am His and He is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ.
This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from His hand till He returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand.
till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ, I'll stand. Here in the power of Christ, we stand.
Hey Orchard Hill, hey, thanks for tuning in tonight. We are jumping into another psalm. If you missed last night's, you missed out on something really good. We'll be going through a couple psalms over the next few nights at this time. So Psalm 2 is really a psalm that's written to the nation of Israel, or I should say for the nation of Israel. But the psalm is written to the nations at large. And so the psalm that we're jumping into is written about the nations that are against Israel, but it's really written for their benefit. You might say, you know, what does this mean for me, Israel, its king? And really, as we look at the Old Testament, what we see is that Israel was God's representative on the earth. They existed so that God could do good to the people on the earth. And they had a king, but today the church is God's representative. And today, Jesus is king of the church. And so we're going to see lots of ways that Psalm 2 is really meaningful to you and I. Here's what it says. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. So from the very beginning, we see that this psalm is addressing the fact that nations are turning towards Israel and they're saying, you know, they're plotting against Israel. They want to see the downfall of Israel. You know, the thing that relates to you and I today is that both in the day when Psalm 2 was written and read, there were people that were plotting to do harm to the people of God. And the same is true today, that there are people that stand against God, people that are regarded as enemies of God because they want to do harm to God's reputation. But watch what happens, beginning in verse 4. It says, the one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them, or you might say makes fun of even. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, on my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. And so God's response to these people that are conspiring against his anointed is he laughs. Because God has chosen that king. God has chosen Israel to be his representatives on the earth, and no one can stand against those people. God is the one who sits on the throne. It goes on to verse 7. It says, I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have become your father. All of this is being spoken about the king who ruled physically in Jerusalem over the nation of Israel, saying to the king, you are my son. Today I have become your father. Verse 8 says, ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. I mean, check this out. A king who might have been a little bit threatened by the fact that all these nations around them were conspiring against Israel, God says, you know what? I'm going to make them your inheritance. I'm so strong and so powerful that those people that are your enemies, you're actually going to come to find that you will rule over them. Now, this verse in particular, verse 7, you are my son, today I have become your father. This occurs a couple of times in the New Testament, Acts, a couple of times in Hebrews, and it's applied to Jesus, where it's said, you are my son, today I have become your father. And the point is that Jesus is the king of the church in the same way that there was a king over Israel. Verse 10 says, therefore you kings, this is talking to the kings out in the world over all the nations, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, talking about the king, or he will be angry, and your ways will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are those who take refuge in him. So I hope you're seeing the whole picture here, that these nations are coming against the king of Israel, but God's saying, you got nothing to fear to the king, because I'm the one who sits enthroned. I have installed you. I am your father. You are my son. And all of this is deeply meaningful to you and I today. Because my guess is that there are things that cause you fear. And I don't know, maybe that is you look around you and you feel like the world is against the message of Jesus. And Psalm 2 would tell us that God looks at that situation and he says, Jesus is the king. He's my son. I sit enthroned. I have made him king. And anybody who thinks that they could possibly stand against my anointed king, God can simply laugh at. And so the question I think for you and I is, what are you afraid of? Because for Israel, on the day when Psalm 2 was read and written, there was great fear about political unrest, these nations coming against them. I don't know, maybe you're afraid of this whole coronavirus situation. Maybe you're afraid of economic uncertainties. Maybe you're afraid of what your job is even going to look like tomorrow or next week. But in the midst of it all, Psalm 2 reminds us that Jesus is king. Jesus is the one who gives us comfort. He's our provision. As king, he brings order. He brings clarity. And nothing can threaten the rule of Jesus. No one can speak a word against the rule of Jesus. And so what I'd like you to do is I have a couple prayer prompts. And I know this is a little weird because you're watching on the internet, on Facebook, but I still want you to engage with this. I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. And I just want you to pray these prayers along with me. The first is this: God, help me to see that Jesus is king. Not the coronavirus, not my job, not the economy, not the stock market, not the fact that we don't know when our kids are going back to school. Jesus is king. A second prayer. God, give us confidence that you laugh at those who try to work against you. Give us confidence that there is no enemy that can stand against you. And then a third prayer. Father, help us to regard your enemies as having already been defeated. And a last prayer. Father, help me to see myself as being a part of your people who you rule over as king, who you protect, who you guard. All right, look up at me for a second. I was reminded of some words that were written by a song by Kanye West just a few months ago. This became popular, right? And the song is called Jesus is Lord. And think about how much this explains Psalm 2. That someone that in many ways was against the message of Jesus writes down these song lyrics that he stole right out of Philippians 2. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess, Jesus is Lord. I don't know what you're afraid of. I don't know what's causing you fear. But I was reminded of our devotion here tonight is sort of an end of the day devotion. And it's a reminder to us at the end of the day as we're wrapping up our day to remember God and remember to put our confidence in him. And I was thinking of the song Taps that's played in military bases, for many decades. I was a Boy Scout, and this was always played at the end of the day at Boy Scout camp. And it was a reminder that it's time to turn in. And the purpose of Taps was to remind us that all is well. Listen to these lyrics. Usually we don't sing to taps, but these are the words written to it. Day is done, gone the sun. From the lake, from the hills, from the sky, all is well. Safely rest. God is nigh. That's a reminder from Psalm 2, is that God is near. Whatever it is that causes you fear, you can know that Jesus is King and he's near with you. If you could, if you're able to even do it, maybe in the comments below, you could just type out Jesus is King over and just put the situation that's causing you a little bit of stress. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, same place.